Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, we respectable listeners. Unarguably, Ramadan na a month of blessings by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Countless numbers of blessings by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many times, when we remind people about the blessings of Ramadan, there is one blessing we really rare for we can make mention of. And today, I want to give you this blessing as a leakage by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many people want to get married by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are worried over expenditure we included when it comes to getting married by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The good news for you, the struggle with this worry is that the best way for downsize, subhanallah, your wedding expenditure, now for plan your wedding and fix your wedding inside the month of Ramadan by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not part of the blessings of the month of Ramadan. It downsize the expenditure when it comes to marriage by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to wedding ceremony by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it downsize the expenditure. If you fix your wedding date in the month of Ramadan by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will be a huge minus in terms of spending. What is this minus? The minus is spending on food. And we all know one of the huge expenditure inside wedding ceremony, subhanallah, now the feeding. Subhanallah, when you normally hear people when they say this marriage is sweet, it is connected to the food. Subhanallah, many times it's connected to the food. The more available the food is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more people when they say this marriage is sweet. The lesser the food, people will say this marriage is not sweet, I even go, they not serve me. So for save yourself by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and easy affairs when it comes to getting married, fix your wedding in the month of Ramadan. Sadly, some people even think you will not for married inside Ramadan. My beloved brother, my beloved sister, the leakage is we can married inside Ramadan by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my beloved brother, fix your date. If you are struggling in terms of earning, subhanallah, and you want to forget marriage, fix your date, your wedding date inside the month of Ramadan by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get married. And all the spending of food is out because people in deep are fast by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah for granting guidance. We ask Almighty Allah for protection. I just decided for share this leakage as quick as possible because really we want for save marriage system and we really want for see more marriage system where people in the engaging for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I repeat again, the leakage is for downsize expenditure in your wedding, fix them inside Ramadan by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and during the day by the mercy of Allah it will be so beautiful by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because people are fasting, so no food will be provided. Subhanallah. We ask Allah for granting guidance and people accept that particular practice. Nobody will grow. Then they fast by the mercy of Allah. The bulk of people will be fasting at that particular moment by the mercy of Allah. They make dua for you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they accept the dua of the fasting person by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, fix your date, your wedding date in the month of Ramadan. This is not part of the blessings of Ramadan by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I said, it is a leakage. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Barakallahu fikum wa jazakum Allahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.